And then all of a sudden, Barry got introduced to meth. And yeah, he started basically like, I don't care what you do, but he was basically he was taking the funds from his company. And I guess he was pushing clients off and not helping clients, but he was taking their money and then saying like, yeah, I'll heal you, I'll treat you. And then they come into town and then he's just like, I'm sick. I can't meet tonight. I can't do it. We can't do it. And he'll just keep pushing them off until they're like, dude, I've been down here 2 weeks. Like I have to go back to, my world. I have to go back to my life. Yeah. So then they would leave and they'd go back and he would just take their money. And it was the same thing, I guess, with the Never Get Busted site that he has, where he is like he's trying to help people lawyer with he'll basically give like lawyer tips to try to like maybe help lawyer them out of prison or for like drug charges and things. When in reality, he was just saying, yeah, he has a case, he can do this. And then he would take the money of these people. And I mean, it was, again, I don't want to tell Kyle's side of it because I was there with Kyle. I lived with him for Christ's sake. So he would tell me things that he was finding. And it was just like, he's like, dude, I'm reading these emails right now. And these emails are just like, this is his family's last like 5 or 15K. They live in a trailer and they're like, I need to get my husband out of prison type deal. And he's just like, yeah, we could do it. And then he would just take it. And that's for partying. He would just want to go to like the sex hotel in Vallarta, or he'd want to, he also spent it on, like hookers, and it would be boys and girls, which I don't care what your prep.
Woo! So that was yesterday's episode. Very spicy, nonstop. Yeah. So this is Lisa. She also has a story, her side of the story. And we're the 3 victims I know. We're doing 3 consecutive days. We thought we'd have everyone come up at once, but that can kind of get crazy. And so what happened?
Yeah. So it's a hard clip to follow, except the sad part is I can follow it because I was there and I know everything that happened. So so like in 2016, my husband Kyle was talking to Barry. We were kind of getting, into the like anarchy movement, like as far as like on Facebook, there was kind of this freedom movement growing, and like Larkin Rose and a bunch of different names, Jeff Berwick and Barry Cooper, and, so on and so forth. And obviously we believe in freedom, and, so it was easy to get, I guess we allowed ourselves to get wrapped up in that, and kind of like the romantic notion that, okay, if these people are into freedom and they understand, that everybody should have the right to do whatever they want as long as they're not hurting anybody. And then, that we just kind of assume everybody in the movement's coming from also like a very similar place in terms of wanting to do good. And so my experience with Barry Cooper shattered that illusion, to say the least. But anyways, my husband was talking to Barry, and Barry was telling him about his one side. So Barry was doing Never Get Busted, which was, people who were in legal trouble. He was supposedly giving them advice to get them out of it based on his experience as a law enforcement officer. The other kind of component was Trip to Wellness, which was people would come down to trip on ayahuasca or ibogaine or anything really, depending kind of on their needs. So he was, a lot of people that were reaching out and wanting to come down for that. It was for addiction related things, or just kind of self-help, self-growth, feeling lost in life, or maybe struggling with other mental health things, depression, the whole kind of gamut, And so a lot of really vulnerable people. But so he was talking to Kyle, and, that's something that Kyle was interested in helping with, having done psychedelics, both of us ourselves, and benefited. And so it was something when Barry offered Kyle a job to like move down there and help him grow the business, make it run more efficiently. It was really exciting. It seemed like the dream opportunity. And myself have a background in SEO and the content writing, and Barry's needed, help with his website. So he offered me a job handling that aspect. So writing all his website content, optimizing it, etc. And so we were really, really excited and kind of planning, you know, how to move our lives to Mexico, getting all of that figured out. Originally, like Kyle wanted to kind of go down and check it out. And Barry was just very adamant of just like, no, I'll take care of you. And it's great down here and you're going to love it. It's very safe. And I'm going to help you every step of the way. I just need you down here sooner than later because I need help, you know, kind of overwhelmed or whatever the case. And so we really rushed it. We skipped that step, which was, you know, in hindsight, just the beginning of the downward ride that we then embarked upon. So once we got down there, he was supposed to pick us up at the airport. He didn't. He actually sent us pictures of this sex hotel. So in Vallarta, Puerto Vallarta, that's a thing. They have like these sex hotels where I guess he told us all about them, but he sent us pictures. Oh, I went here last night, so I'm just too tired to come get you, basically. So we're like, all right, you know, like that's weird, but like we knew
first thing.
Quirky. Yeah, I mean, you can tell from his posts and stuff, he's kind of quirky, but you just think, oh, he's into, you know, tripping to wellness, and so you expect a little eccentricity.
Yeah,
but
goofy hippie guy.
Yeah, so that was kind of like, you know, a little off, you know, but we managed, and then it was like, you know, we're supposed to meet with him, you know, obviously we're down there to start work, and the whole idea is get the ball rolling as soon as possible. That's why he wanted us down there, and he kept blowing off meeting us face to face and blowing it off, you know, and then finally it was like, okay, well, let's you know, here's the restaurant and let's go meet here. So Kyle and I go and show up. Oh, and then Max, I forgot. So Max came down with us. He's a friend. He had lived with us beforehand and wanted to help with this, you know, endeavor because he's on the same page. And so he was down there with us as well. What was I saying? So yeah, so then we were sitting at this restaurant forever, and we keep getting off and on messages. Oh, we're on our way. We just left, you know, and then like 30 minutes later, oh, we're on our way. And so finally it's like, how about we'll just come to you, you know, no big deal. Like, we'll just come to you. And so they sent the address, we show up, and his girlfriend, Mia, answered the door, let us in. And we're just kind of sitting in the kitchen, waiting and waiting and waiting. And then finally Barry comes down. He was upstairs this whole time, like, this whole time we're just waiting down there in his kitchen. You know, his new employees who dropped it, you know, changed their whole life, moved to Mexico, everything to just really invest, you know, all this effort into growing this thing for him with the idea of like helping people, making the world better. You know, he comes down, he claims he's on acid, and then immediately pours himself this giant, like, I think it was rum and Coke, giant alcoholic drink, which, you know, if you've done acid before, like, and if you're, you know, if you're on the page of understanding how, like, why you might do acid therapeutically, like a big glass of liquor is not really what you're, you know, doing with it. So
alcohol's the status drug of choice. Like, that's the last one.
And especially too, because he's had been touting on social media how, you know, doing ayahuasca and ibogaine and these other things had helped him kick his alcohol. You know, I don't know if he ever referred to it as an addiction, but definitely too much drinking. And so then in the course of this introductory face-to-face meeting, he goes on to tell us that he was like on the fence about meeting us at all. Like, he didn't really think we were going to come down or show up. And then once we did, he was literally like seriously considering ghosting us after months and months of
and then he told you that.
Yeah, months of it.
First
and I had already started, you know, in advance working on content planning and developing content. So, because the whole idea was, you know, like I said, get things rolling and really make this into what it could be. Because there is a lot of potential. You know, if somebody is doing that right, there's a lot of potential for good. So then the next thing we was dropped on us, I guess, was that there was no facility. So he had told us that with Trip to Wellness that he had this facility, you know, with rooms and you know, like medical staff and resources, like a nurse, a couple nurses, a doctor, and again, a facility. And there was no facility. And in fact, we found out that he was tripping people in his own home, which is just in a normal neighborhood in Mexico. So no element of noise control or, privacy, really, not like you would expect when you're paying thousands of dollars to to come trip in a professional setting, in a setting like medically safe and also setting, and then also with the like all of just environments and ambience type factors taken into consideration. It was nothing like that. So that was shocking, to say the least. After that first meeting, then it was more kind of back and forth of we were supposed to meet up and do this, supposed to meet up and do that, and he would cancel. It was just very erratic, as far as trying to get anything to move forward with the business, and what we're supposed to be doing. And we're just Kyle, myself, and Max are just trying to be patient, like give him the benefit of the doubt still, but it was becoming clear, that it really wasn't what we signed up for. And even worse, not what, people that are coming there for help, really desperate and really, like I said, vulnerable, they're just being straight up disrespected and screwed over. I mean, really, it's disgusting. Yeah. It really is. So yeah, within a couple of weeks, so they had a client come down. His name was Chris. He was coming more for like self-help exploration type of thing. So he came down. They did kind of a meet and greet. And then the night that he was supposed to trip the first time, and bear in mind too, like whenever these people are coming down, there's not like a set date for their trip. And it's specifically because like Barry knows he can't commit to a set date, because if he says, we're going to do it on the 5th of July, and then the 3rd or 4th of July comes around and he decides, he wants to go on a bender, he's going on the bender. He doesn't he's not rearranging his life for anybody that's entrusting him with this, care and help. Yeah. So then first time I think that Chris was supposed to trip, then Barry canceled. He messaged us and said, I don't feel like doing it. Let's go party. And we're just all like, what? That's no, you have any other night to party. This is this person's night. This is your client's night. Like they've been mentally preparing, and like, who knows how anxious they are. You don't cancel on somebody like that. And they paid for this service. So that type of thing was happening. And then also, I forget when exactly in there, because again, this was, we went down there in 2017. We moved down there July 2017. So it's been a while. So sorry if there's some kind of gaps with the timeline, but at some point in there prior to Chris's first trip, it became clear that Barry was doing a lot of meth too. So a lot of drinking, a lot of meth, and just general partying, and he'd be sick a lot. That's the other thing. He was like always sick. And then we realized, he's hungover. He's probably been up 4 or 5 days. He's not sick.
Yeah. He does benders.
So let's see. So then the first time, so finally Chris goes to Barry's house to trip, and Barry had wanted myself, Kyle, and Max to come and like train, right? We were supposed to observe how they administer ayahuasca was the plan. And so we arrived early, Kyle, myself, and Max, and we get there and they're like blaring, I forget if it was like Katy Perry or some equivalent of just like obnoxious pop, like weird. It's like not something you would play like when you're establishing like the right setting for a spiritual journey, it's like, and yeah, I mean, I know that
that shows like inexperience, really. Like if you're in your 50s and you're partying, obviously he was a cop, so he never got to party, so he's partying now, and just like that's just not a very like, it's just like not of experience, or who you would want like the headspace you would want from someone helping you and
Yeah.
healing you, being that overtly not healed.
Yeah,
It's kind of like,
exactly.
yeah.
Yep. Yeah, so it was a very, just kind of like raise your eyebrows and are like, okay, well, I guess, like the client's not here yet. So, I mean, like hopefully they turn it off, like, so, yeah. And then, so somehow we get to, Chris shows up. So the client's there and Barry's kind of giving him this very, what's the word? This sort of weird kind of like guru sort of speech, that it just didn't come across very sincere, and it wasn't of any value for sure. So so that was another red flag where it's just like, wait, this guy isn't what he's been advertised as. And this was kind of our first chance to see him in action as like trip to wellness master. And it was just very jarring. Very jarring. And it immediately just, I felt bad. I felt really bad for Chris. And it's like, it's just like, you just hope at that point, all I could do was hope that he had a good trip, like hopefully he gets settled, he has a good trip, because, the medicine can do what it's going to do, regardless of Barry. So he did. So he goes, so Barry tripped him in their guest bedroom upstairs, basically gave him like a small dose and then came back downstairs. And so it was then Barry, Mia, Kyle, Max, and I in the living room, downstairs. And then, Barry just started kind of like just talking about unrelated stuff and getting really loud and animated and boisterous. And as Kyle and I and Max are kind of like, shh, like he's tripping, like somebody tripping upstairs. And Barry's thoughts on it were, it's all like, if he hears me, it's all just part of his trip. It's all just part of his trip, and he's meant to hear it. And like I said, it's he's talking about just nothing. I don't remember exactly. It just imagine the most incongruent sort of topics. It's like if you're at a party talking to somebody who's drunk or something.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then he mentioned that a previous client that he had tripped a woman who he'd had tripped. So he had like this back patio that was, kind of walled in as they are down there. And he had put just like a mattress down on this patio and had the woman tripping out there. And the same thing that she like complained, I can hear music from your neighbors and this and that. And his whole answer was the same thing. Oh, it's just part of the trip. Like, it's not a big deal, like, go with it or whatever. So obviously this wasn't the first time, somebody's trip was ruined in their experience. And, and so then at one point he had gone up to check on Chris, and maybe I think I'd given him like a second dose. And then a little later, he asked, if I wanted to go, or asked me to go up like and check on him or whatever. So I went in and checked on him, and he mentioned, so Chris, he was fine. He still starting to feel the effects or whatever. But that he noticed, because there was a monitor, like a computer monitor on this sort of dresser to the side. And he said it was like flashing on and off, and he, it was distracting. And then, so I mentioned that when I went back downstairs, and Barry's like, yeah, we videotape everybody, but it's like, they don't tell them they're being videotaped, which is really fucked up, like on so many levels. So just inappropriate all around, and unqualified to be dealing with any sort of psychedelics or self-help in any way, and should not have been near anybody who's in any condition to need mental help, or even not even mental help, just like support, emotional support, upliftment, anything positive. I mean, he's just the exact opposite. It's really sad still. I try. It's not like I think about this every day, and it definitely took a long time to not have it be seeping in all the time, and just
it's traumatizing.
shock and disappointment, and it just makes you think differently about people in general, you know, charlatans or scammers, you know, like that whole thing. And it really, you know, it just broke that illusion of, you know, this growing sort of like freedom movement of people who give a shit. It's like, this dude doesn't give a shit at all. Like
every shaman I've met from the Liberty movement has been so full of shit. Like, it's like,
yeah,
for one, like I would be embarrassed to even call myself that. Even if I was emulating exactly what a shaman is doing, I wouldn't call myself that. Like, it's so cheeseball. And yeah.
And looking back, you know, like I said, there's so many red flags, and that's been a huge lesson for us of, you know, you can't just see what you want to see and hope. You know, it's like you really need to take a step back, and if you're getting these gut feelings of something that's not right, then it's worth it. It's worth it to listen, you know, because we overrode so many of those because the idea was so enticing. It was a dream, you know, like we want to help people, and these things have helped us, and who knows how much more good they can do. And
then traveling is such an intense experience. I moved to Central America, and it was wild. The first day was absolutely life-changing in so many ways.
Yeah.
So it's rough.
Yeah. And so let's see what else. what other crazy things have I left out already? Oh, so I think within the first couple of weeks of being down there was a night where I got a call from Mia, Kyle got a call from Barry, and they were having this huge fight. And it ended up that Mia came to our place, and then Kyle went and babysat Barry like the whole night. And so Mia, I mean, was super upset and started telling me stuff about like their relationship and abuse and different things like that. And it's, you know, this ongoing sort of problem. And we kind of like, you know, the next day, the four of us kind of had a conversation about it, but not really, because mostly it was just Barry making excuses for his behavior, like the cliches of, you know, like, you know, she deserved it, kind of, you know, like he's not at fault, and that kind of thing. So
the cop,
and just you know, more evidence of the instability and just I don't know the word that I'm looking for. Bad person. I don't know. Just, you know, just the quality of individual that we were dealing with as far as that went. So let's see what else. So then Chris actually came to live with us because his trips kept getting blown off more and more, and he would get ghosted. And he had gotten a one-way flight down, you know, based on Barry's thing of like, you know, we'll kind of schedule it when you're ready and when I determine you're ready, and that kind of thing. And so he didn't really know if he should stick around, and if maybe, you know, the experience, you know, would still happen, because that's what he was being told. And he'd already spent the money, and he'd already come down, and all of that stuff. But he ended up staying with us for a while, and tripping at our place. And then in that, so then, and yeah, I think at that point, the, you know, falling out had happened, which was essentially Barry got sick, and so we were just kind of waiting around for him to get better so we could, you know, work on the business and do these things, you know, that he had hired us to do. And mind you, we had received no pay at all. And like the work that I had done prior was in the interest, or, you know, was under the spoken agreement of, you know, you'll get taken care of once you're down here, and, you know, being invested in the dream and the success of all of it and the opportunity. It was like, well, yeah, you know, it needs to get done sooner or later. So, you know, already started working, and never got paid. So yeah, never got paid a penny for anything whatsoever, reimbursed for anything that he was supposed to reimburse for, help with in any way at all, ever. So there's that component. But so when Kyle started speaking with him, more in depth about, well, here's, what we need to do to put in place, we do need a facility and we do need these things, and it needs to be professional and it needs to be this, this, and this. And then Barry started to get very reactive about that. It's like he knew he needed help, which is why he had asked for it, but he didn't actually want it because he didn't, the concept that he would need help was too much for his ego.
Yeah.
And so he didn't want to listen to anything. And then when Kyle would kind of press him, like, well, this is really a good idea for these reasons, and it needs to happen, and this needs to be run differently. He just got more and more reactive, and then, ultimately was just threatened, as like thinking Kyle wanted to take over the whole thing or whatever, which he didn't. He didn't want to be the front man face or anything. It's just like
before.
Yeah. It's like, and so then Barry gets sick, which was really, hungover for several days or coming off whenever he's coming off. And, we go over to meet with him, and he like flips out. You're like, you guys, like, where were you? Like, you didn't come help me when I was sick and I needed help. And like the whole time he was sick, we were messaging, what can we do? What can we work on until you're better? All of these things. And got nothing, concrete or just, or no response at all. So we flipped out and said, that we hadn't showed up and we weren't working and we weren't trying and all of these things. And I forget kind of the final, so then, basically it was us being like, well, no, that's actually not what happened, caused him to like lose his shit. And we're over at his house at this point. It's him and Mia and Kyle and I. And when Kyle like pushed back and was like, well, actually, we were willing and ready and available to do our jobs and help. And we were just waiting on you. And we offered, what can we do? And he just like lost it and, was like, pulled a knife in his kitchen. Like, well then, like you're fired or, something like that. And I don't know, like, I mean, and at that point I was just like, it's like watching a movie or something. It's like my brain couldn't even process it. It was so out of just left field. Why are you upset? We moved here. Like, we came here to help you. We've tried everything to help you. Why are you angry like this? Why are you pulling a knife? Like, nobody's threatening anybody. There was nothing like that. And then it was just all of a sudden that level, and so at that point it's just like, we left, obviously. Kyle and I left, and it was like, okay.
It kind of just gets funny at that point. You're like, wow, like this is escalating very quickly.
Yeah.
And didn't he like karate kick some guy too?
Oh, so yeah. Well, that was so after, we're out of the business. Then, and so mind you, we had moved our whole life down there. We didn't have a place to come back to in the States or whatever. We're renting a place
Max
down
spent
there.
his life savings.
Yeah. So we've all in and couldn't just leave and go back to the States. So we're living down there trying to, just kind of cope with the whole situation. One day our doorbell rings, and it's a client of Barry's named Antonio, who had his arm in a sling and came in and just started explaining his experience with Barry. So Antonio is like Lebanese, like royalty in Lebanon, and had gone into contact with Barry for help with an addiction issue he was having, and had come down and spent, I think he had paid, all things, at the very end of it, like $30 grand, 30 grand he had paid to Barry for, different kinds of, experiences in this total, like just healing, addiction, breaking, treatment, care experience. And it didn't go. he got nothing, in return for what he spent and the trust that he put in Barry. There was like, I think the Ibogaine Barry never had which he had promised. And that's a big thing. That's like, as far as addiction, that's something that's very, has worked for a lot of people. So he came specifically wanting to do that, ayahuasca, and Barry didn't come through with anything. I don't think, as I recall, I don't think there was a single trip. Maybe there was something. It was, nothing for all intents and purposes. And so whenever then Antonio was kind of doing the same thing that had happened to Chris, was like sticking around while he's getting blown off all these times, and being told whatever bullshit by Barry of why it wasn't the right day or time. And really it was just to cover for him not showing up, not wanting to show up, being hungover, being high, whatever. And so whenever Antonio, kind of started to get mad, or, just like, well, what's going on? Am I getting scammed? When it started to get clear, and he's like, kind of started pushing of, I want to have my experience or whatever. And then Barry had another like flip out basically. And so Antonio was staying downtown-ish with a guy that Barry works with. Barry had put us in touch with him. His name's George. He's like a local down there to like help us find housing before we came down. And so that's who Antonio was staying with, because he didn't have anywhere else to stay. And I just see that comment. Yeah, exactly. But so then one day Antonio's like outside near where he's staying, and all of a sudden like Barry is on the street and ends up coming up behind him and kicking him so hard it fractured his arm. And so he's now in a sling, now out 30 grand in Mexico, has got no help. And I mean, just like our experience was like shattering, traumatic enough, but it's like whenever somebody's really thinking like, I'm going to get the help, this is a turning point, I'm turning things around for myself, and this is the beginning of the up, only to find it's actually, like going to get worse. It's worse, it's just, it's horrible.
Yeah.
So Antonio, so we're still friends with Antonio to this day. He's a really good guy, and we've kept in touch. And I guess that's like kind of the positive that came out, the positive that came out of all of our experience of getting duped into coming down there by Barry and screwed over. It's like at least this one positive thing came out of all of it. Let's see. It's kind of hard to think back and remember everything, because it's like every day that we dealt with him was like dealing with like a lifetime of drama.
Yeah.
So and insanity.
The obvious juiciest thing that came out yesterday was the boys.
Mm-hmm. Yep. So as far as the weird sexual stuff, there was the fact that he came on to Chris, the client.
Yeah. Like
tried to hook up with him.
Yeah.
The client.
Yeah. Didn't he try and hook up with you guys?
Yeah. Yep. He and Mia, had their open thing, and were doing whatever they were doing.
Obviously.
And so like when we got down there at one point, Barry had made a couple of comments where it was like he was assuming that like the four of us were going to hook up or something like that. And we had to be like, no, like, no, this is a professional working relationship only. And and then, all the sex hotels stuff. And, he confided a lot more with Kyle about that. So I'll let Kyle get into the details, but, stuff that I heard from Mia, as far as, him like wanting her to pretend to be a boy and different things that it was just kind of like, I don't know what to do. And, so the whole depths of whatever is going on there, I don't know, and again, it's like, I don't ultimately care what people do, as long as it's consensual and, and whatever, but whenever it's a client, if you can't control yourself around a client, then you have no credibility with me as having any kind of control.
Yeah, obviously.
So yeah. The other thing I forgot to mention too, so the night that we went to train, when he was gonna trip Chris, when we got there, Mia answered the door, and she was like walking very slowly, like a 90-year-old woman, and looked very upset. And so I asked her if she was okay, and she showed me she was wearing like a V-cut sort of top, and she showed me she had this red mark here, and she said that he had assaulted her to the point that she passed out, and he had to resuscitate her, and that's why she had this red mark there. And this is like within an hour of somebody supposed to come to that very same place and have a spiritual experience. So yeah.
Whoa.
Yeah.
Jeez, it's so weird. Like, all these guys are the same. They all do the same things. Like, you're telling me a story that like I lived, twice with two other activists, like similar just personalities, like these stories are all the same. It's crazy. I mean, this is a big extreme, he's obviously farther down his line than most of these people.
Yeah.
Who knows what he's been through or what his parents went through or his grandparents went through, but like he's dealing with a lot of shit because that guy's got some, I mean, that's mind blowing. But that's why, these people leave the country. They're all, oh, I'm expatting because fuck this place. No, you're getting rejected in your community, most likely. You've alienated everyone. And, I went to, I was able to work from abroad, and I went to Central America for a while, and I met so many expats, and they all were very similar, like personality types that were just like, oh, you like left for a reason, huh? Like you kind of had to, didn't you?
Yeah.
It's pretty crazy. But this, I mean, whew, I'm so sorry. Like,
yeah,
so...
I mean, at this point, it's like, it does still bother me, just, for some of those reasons I said earlier. It's just so sad and like disappointing and shitty that
it was such a good idea, obviously, and like everybody was coming together. And that's like what I see at the core around these people that are attracted to, like that kind of thing. I see all these people that are trying to do something good, and this charismatic leader comes along and destroys everything. Like, it's wild.
Yeah.
Like,
has already destroyed it, or if there was anything to destroy, who knows? But it's just a path to nowhere good. That's something, even with like kind of the anarcho-polko sort of community and that whole thing coming up. And that was I got very excited when I first heard of that. I was like, because it really felt like, okay, things are moving in a good direction here. Like there's a conference, like an international conference. This is happening. Like this movement's gaining some momentum, again, towards the good, and getting rid of, the anti-freedom things that are just fucking so many people over and making it hard to, live a real life. A real life, not just going through the motions, within the cages. But even it's like, even that, seeing that kind of blow up, and even like, I don't know if you watched that documentary on HBO about that, but seeing
eventually
all the ways
did. Begrudgingly. And it was embarrassing.
It was. Yeah.
And like my least favorite friend on Facebook was my favorite character on that show. So that kind of shows you.
Yeah. And even, because there was kind of that, like Barry and Jeff Berwick had that, like, their own little drama. And whenever our, situation with Barry reached the point, of the, like when we realized, what had really happened and who he was and all that stuff. And I know Kyle reached out to Berwick, thinking that since he had the platform and the audience that he did and had already gone through it with Barry, that he would want to, have us
I think
on.
they used to be buddies and they kind of know too much stuff about each other, and like Berwick's done so much shit. He doesn't want to get anyone mad at him that knows about what he's done in the past, because I know a lot about what he's done in the past. And he's stole millions and millions of dollars from thousands of libertarians, like scammed, and like just like kept going, and everyone just kept supporting him. And this is kind of why I do stuff like this, is because it's just like, what's going on here? We're supposed to be like holding accountable our community, because we're supposed to be like leading by example, and like you're turning into the thing that you talked the most shit about, like it's wild. Like no one has to go to Acapulco to get more anarcho-capitalist, like it's wild.
Yeah, and it is even just seeing some of the parallels, that with people, on the documentary, and kind of with us too, where, Mexico got very romanticized. And it's, like Barry, I remember him saying that he felt, like if Mia goes out walking at any time of day or night, he doesn't worry about her. It's so safe, blah, blah, blah. And it's not fucking safe. It's not, like there's like, it's just, there's just a ton of poverty and just a culture of hustle. And, there's all kinds of shit, going, of course there is everywhere in the world, but it's like, that was just such a blatant lie, that it was so safe and all this stuff. And I know that Acapulco was being made out to be that way too. And it's like,
it's a shithole.
Yeah.
I mean, I lived in Nicaragua, and Nicaragua is a pretty stigmatized place because of the past political stuff we've had with them. And Mexico makes Nicaragua look like Hawaii. Like it's a lot safer in Nicaragua than it is in Mexico. And it's a lot more authentic, and it's cheaper, and the people are nicer, and like, it was strange, to pick Acapulco of all places. And, he's like fluffing it up like, oh, we got rid of our police here and like all this shit. And it's like, I don't know, man.
Actually, it's like
it's cartel. Like,
yeah. Like, there's a reason that cruise ships like don't go there anymore,
Yeah.
But
and that documentary didn't help it out at all either. That's for sure.
No.
It was hard to get through.
It was.
But I watched all that happen. It was wild.
I wasn't sure. I know that you had dealt with Berwick to some extent, but I didn't know, how deeper firsthand. Or
yeah, no, I haven't had that. I mean, like, I worked with Adam Kokesh for a while, and I met Jeff through there, and Barry through there. Like, I met a lot of like these guys through him, and they were super nice back then, and then like when I moved to Nicaragua, Berwick like had me be the like dollar vigilante Nicaragua guy. And that was him and Luis Fernando Mises, who's this other clown shaman guy who's just trying to make money off the liberty movement and make money off of people all the time. So it's like, it just drives me crazy seeing these people, and everybody's just, oh, they're cool. No. Oh, like whatever. Like Berwick scammed all these people. He did the like the Gulch thing, and then he did the citizenship. It was like $60,000 to get citizenship immediately in Mexico. And then like he like staggered around when he got caught. He like staggered around town with a camera pointed at him, drunk with his shirt off, and everyone's all, oh, poor guy, too bad, he's an alcoholic, it's fine. And then everyone forgot about what happened. And it's like, dude, this dude scammed so many people. And you guys still think he's awesome for some reason,
Yeah, that's the thing with Barry too. It's like, people don't want to believe it. Like if you post anything, anti-Barry anywhere that Barry posts anything, it's like there's this army of like people who are like,
videos aren't that good. They're really weird and robotic, and it's all stuff someone else has said. Like it's all kind of like it's not. I never got anything from his videos, like,
Yeah.
but
And
I'm kind of a
especially,
snob when it comes to stuff.
yeah, I mean, now when I go back, it's like, well, how did I not see it? You know,
Yeah.
it's really, it's
Well, once
like,
you meet one, real one, then you see all the other ones,
yeah,
and that's kind of
yeah,
been my path. Is I met a real deal, like
yeah,
serious narcissist, like
yeah,
it was self-admitted, like, you know. And
yeah.
so then it was like, oh, I can see these people a mile away now because I
Mhm.
lost a lot to one of those. I gave my whole life up for a while, for like 3 years, and paid for it dearly
Yeah,
and didn't get anything out of it in the end, that's for sure,
yeah,
except experience and knowing how to spot a narcissist. So
yeah. It's
you
a
know
hard lesson to learn that way for sure.
yeah, they
Yeah,
all do the same shit though, like they all say the same stuff, they all do have the same behaviors, so it's like,
yeah.
you know
Well, now too, it's like, and it's because, the idea of the liberty movement, it's just like kind of, blinded, like the idea that it could work and just the whole thing and really getting swept away in that, we just willfully sort of didn't see things. And um yeah, I mean, that's just like you said, it's a lesson,
yeah,
it's a really,
it's a big, expensive, stressful, traumatic lesson,
yeah, yeah,
and it weighs on you, and it's like it's good to talk about it. I didn't,
yeah.
like,
Especially, I don't know what Barry's doing today.
but he's
He might,
making podcasts. He's doing one every day,
oh geez.
and his eyes look
The
completely dead. Like, dude looks harsh.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, and just in the time of being down there and when we were dealing with him, seeing him just take money, like whatever he would post wherever, and then people we're supporting, we're supporting the Liberty movement by supporting Barry, and so they'll just give money even if they're not coming to trip or wanting for, never get busted services. It's like they'll just give him money and, thousands of dollars, and they don't realize, that it's going to his drug problem or, whatever other thing that he's doing for himself only.
Dates,
Yeah.
Tinder dates,
Yeah.
OnlyFans.
Yeah. I mean, it's like, I don't even want to know the full extent. I know
Yeah,
too much
I mean,
already.
that's just like, in
Yeah.
my experience, I've seen
Yeah.
the money go towards most.
Yeah. Sex and drugs. Like, yeah.
Yeah,
Boom.
and drugs and just whatever.
Yeah.
But yeah, I've seen tens of thousands of dollars be donated and
Yeah.
just like completely pissed away.
Yeah. And
It's
that's
wild.
like kind of the whole thing about, having a conversation like this, for people to see. It's like at this point, it's like, it's not bitterness, like, yeah, it was fucked up. He's obviously a
Mm,
fucked up person. The whole point is don't be fooled. I was
yeah,
fooled. Don't be fooled. Keep your money, or at least, like, if you want to donate, this is not the avenue to do
yeah. We
good.
can show you some way better places to donate to
Yeah.
than this clown.
Yeah. Don't
Yeah,
and don't expect anything in return for anything that you do or give or anything,
yeah.
and
Dude's
that's
YouTube looks really sus. I've been in social media and SEO and stuff like that for years. Um, Dude's YouTube is super sus. When you get round numbers, that's a little sus, and then like the comment ratio and like how many, like it's a little weird, and the fact that he was filming people, and I know that guy I told you about, Adam Kokesh, went
Mhm.
down there and he filmed him.
Yeah, yeah,
And
he knows about that.
what do you know about that? Because I've only heard that.
Yep, so I heard him say that he had recorded him,
Yeah,
like unknowingly without his consent or whatever. The like larger conversation about all of that and how far it went, I wasn't there when Kyle and Barry had those conversations, so I'll let
yeah,
Kyle do that. But I
yeah.
do know that, like, that was definitely conveyed as a, motivation for the recording. Like, it's like you could
Very
say
suspicious.
on one hand, like, if you were doing it for liability or something, so if somebody, said they had a problem after the fact or something like that, but in that case, you would get their consent. If you're, if you're recording people without their consent, and they, to this day don't even know they recorded, who knows how many people came down there, and he, just has this really personal footage, or, recorded their sort of, conversation that was supposed to be therapeutic or anything like that.
Or he's just filming essays, doesn't sound too far off from this guy. And filming sensitive people in sensitive situations, which is what the CIA does and stuff. It's very suspicious that his YouTube is where it's at, and that he's done these things, and he keeps. Have you read about this Netflix thing?
His movie?
Is it a movie?
I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know if we're talking about the same thing. I know that when we were there, he was saying that somebody had bought the rights to do a movie of his life. I don't know if that's what you're talking about.
Yeah.
Okay.
Because he made, I made some video about a buddy of his, and so he made a video about me, and he was like, once I get world famous, blah 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 blah. Like he was calling me a drug addict, faggot, like fucking all this shit. Poppers. He was saying that I do poppers all day. Like,
dude,
I was like, whoa, dude, these are pretty like specific things. You must be like talking about yourself here, like, and that the whole like everyone slandering me, like the dude's just like a broken record when.
He loves to call people faggots for sure. I can't even count how many times I've heard him use that. I mean, I'm pretty sure he called me a couple of faggots at some point when he started, going off the rails. What was I going to say? Oh, so the poppers, at one point when we were down there, I had a conversation with him about them because he didn't know what they were. And so, and it's like, well, if you're, doing what you're doing, it's trip to wellness and helping people and all this stuff, that you should at least be aware of it. And so kind of explaining it to him. And then he like was all excited to like try them. And so one night, like Kyle and I are home, and he calls Kyle at like 2 a.m. or something, and is like panicking because and mind you, like when he was told it's an inhalant, and this is how people use them, and this is what to expect and that type of thing. And he had inserted the bottle rectally. Like, who fucking knows why or how you would put like flammable corrosive liquid in a bottle?
What?
Yeah, and
he put it in his butt.
Yeah. I mean, it's a miracle, like, really, that it didn't open, or I mean, because that too, like, it's dangerous.
I can see why he might think he needed to do that.
Yeah,
but no.
Yeah. So I'll let Kyle fill you in on the rest of that, because he had the conversations. God. But Kyle's face when he got off the phone was like, I mean, it was.
You've got to be kidding me.
Yeah, of just like, what the fuck did I just hear? And what the fuck is this guy like? Who is this person? Like, yeah. So that was interesting. I was gonna mention too that he coerced more or less Chris, that first client that we worked with a bit. He coerced him into making a a video testimonial. And maybe coerce is too strong of a word, but like really pressured him. Like Chris didn't really want to, because he had
he came on to him.
Yeah.
What?
Yeah.
Oh my God.
Yeah. And so he ended up making Chris ended up making the video.
Does it exist?
I mean, I've never seen it. I don't know if it ever got posted or not. I know that Chris asked him to not publish it.
Yeah.
I wouldn't put it past him to publish it anyway.
Yeah.
At a certain point, it's like I just stopped paying attention to anything that he was doing, and just, block and move on with my life, as far as, the Barry saga continuing on its own track. But I don't know if he actually respected that request or not. But
what did he did he like write it out? Did he script it for him?
I don't know if there's a script. I know he was coached, and that, like I said, he really didn't want to do it, and he tried to be like, I don't want to do it, or like put it off or anything like that. And then
Yeah.
it's like
And he just used
very,
his cop energy to just force him into
yeah,
doing it.
yeah, basically.
Which he's an expert at because he's a cop.
Yeah, that's the perfect way to put it. Yeah.
Yeah.
The cop energy. Yeah.
Jesus.
Yeah. Let's see. I'm trying to think if I left anything out. Like I said, there's
you guys went to the like local business, gringo business place and told them, you're like, dude, this guy's like dangerous. You might want to check him out.
And at
which I understand.
Yeah, at a certain point too, he was getting kicked out of places. He told us one of the second time I think that we, saw him in person after being down there, he was telling us that him and Mia had been kicked out of a place for having sex too loud, for like that the neighbors did made noise complaints and got them kicked out, and that it was because they were just having really loud sex. And then in retrospect, it's like, no, it's probably you verbally and or physically abusing her,
fighting, screaming,
and they got kicked out of another place too, I think while we were still down there, and then that was kind of when he did the move to the Philippines, as I recall.
I'd imagine the cartel told him he had to go, because in Central America, if you're that crazy, the cops take you to the airport and put you on a plane. Some local authorities you need to go or we're gonna kill you. Basically, what Max was saying yesterday. They're serious down there.
Yeah.
Yikes.
Yeah.
And you guys got stuck there. How long?
Sorry?
How long did you guys get stuck there?
So we got back, I think it was a total of 15 months.
Oh my God.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it's
and you guys just had to fend for yourself for 15 months in Mexico.
Yeah. And yeah.
Because this psycho.
There's actually another guy. So Barry, whenever we started working for him, he had an SEO guy. His name is Ben, and he ended up not paying Ben either. And then we got in touch with him as he got screwed over also. And at one point, I forget where they were living. I think just somewhere else in Mexico where they were living. They weren't living in the States, him and his girlfriend, but they came to Vallarta because Barry had said, I can't pay you, but I'll trip you. And you're a girl, if you want to do that, I'll trip you on ayahuasca or whatever. And so they came up for that. And then when they got there, Barry denied ever having said that. And also, never paid them either. So a couple more victims that we met.
People like that like having people dependent financially on them, and they like fucking with them like that, It's really, I've heard the story. So I've seen it happen. I've heard it so many times over the years, just one after another, and it's just all, and all these people are the greatest activists, and afterwards they're done.
Yeah.
They have all the,
It's just anytime you see anybody who's really social media, who's really hammering social media, a lot of videos and all fucking selfie this, selfie that, and here's me on the beach.
Adderall and
yeah, it's like that is the first kind of indication of not being real. I mean, if you're that into social media and yourself, then you're not really about what you're saying you're about.
Yeah, clearly.
And at the kind of looking back, you just think, well, they're spending so much time on social media, just to to build it for this, to be able to help more people and reach more people. But it's not that.
It's a revenue
they're
stream.
Not building it for that reason.
Yeah.
Barry Cooper never get paid. Yeah.
That is just so shocking.
It's hard to believe. I mean, even that I had the experience, it's just surreal even to think about now, years later.
15 months like that.
Mm-hmm.
Woo. And I remember everyone's enthusiasm back then. Everybody wanted to go out and just do everything. And it was just like these 6 dudes grabbed everyone and just crushed them all.
Yeah, and even
Like,
the idea of Mexico being like this, like, pro sort of anarchy libertarian like place, and it's not. It's like
no.
You have the cops and the cartel, and so I was going to say this before. So before we went down, Barry said everything he was doing was clear through the cartel or whatever. And then, of course, when we got down there, it was like, no, it's not.
Yeah.
No,
oh
it's
my
not.
Oh, and then just like the Acapulco shit flies, and I mean, like that stuff.
Yeah.
Like that kid getting shot and everything. It's just like same fucking story over again, just in another Mexican city with a bunch of dumb gringos. It's been this story over and over and over again for the last 300 years down there in Mexico. Gringos coming down and, acting a fool. Like they know, yeah, that must have been really scary.
Yeah. Yeah. It's a lesson, like you said. That's, the only way to look at it at this point. And then to take this opportunity to just say, here's what happened. Here's my first-hand experience with this guy. And hopefully somebody who needs to hear it hears it before, they just become another victim.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, thanks for doing that. I've seen so many people. And so many people have come to me in private and told me their stories and like, oh, I don't want to go public. And it's just like, are you kidding me? Like when, and then whenever I'm out calling, like asking questions, people are like, just like, oh, where's the evidence? And it's like, like I know all this stuff, but no one's like made a video, and like told their story. So, thank you for doing that. It's hard to have to think about all this stuff again, and so
and it's like
I get it.
It's like embarrassing too. Like for it takes a while to get over sort of the shame and embarrassment.
We all got duped by these guys. Charisma intoxicates greatly, and like you didn't even, and it wasn't even like Barry was that cool of a guy to begin with. So it's like like some of these dudes are at least pretty interesting or smart. Barry's just like, I don't know, like I don't see the value. Really, because he just seems like he's still a cop.
Yep. And really, the kind of opportunity we saw was that he did have such a following, that it was like, if he needed to be the face in order for this, organization, this business, or like business organization, whatever you want to call it, in order for this opportunity to help people to happen, if you need a front man with a following or whatever, fine. Because at the end of the day, it's not about Barry. It shouldn't have been about Barry in any way. It's about reaching people who need help and getting them the service that they need, And that was kind of the opportunity that we saw there, more so than like,
no, I get it.
He's a great healer, but we did fall for, him having good intentions, we definitely fell for that.
No, it's like what Max said, and you said, you're like, the second you guys got there, you were like, oh no, like I already, and like I used to remember, like we'd have like people that would want to come and volunteer time, and they'd like walk in the door and they'd just be like deer in headlights, all like, whoa, the energy here is not what I was expecting, there's like everyone's mad, like because like the main guy has pitted everyone against each other, and like it's like, so these guys all do the same shit. But yeah, the more we're all talking about it, the more other people will be able to spot it and not fall for these dudes, and not, because I've seen people sell houses, I've seen people just like oh, this guy talked to me, I'm gonna quit my job and go hang out with him, but he has a shitty life. So it's like, and it's like I've just been dealing with, and since it happened to me, I've it's been an interest of mine, and I've talked to so many people that it happened to them. It's just, and it's always the same story. It's super wild, and we need to stop helping these guys because they need to hit a bottom. No one no one helps themselves until they hit bottom, and
Yeah.
all these people that donate to these guys, like they're just enabling. They're enabling the bad behavior to continue longer when it could have just stopped a long time ago, because the person didn't have the means to, disrupt that many people's families, like it's really sketchy, and it's so sketchy that everyone's just okay with it in this movement. That's always been kind of, the craziest thing for me, like, and like you guys have also backed away a little bit from the movement, because it's like, dude, you guys are all nuts, like, stop trying to make money.
Yeah. You're ruining it. You're ruining the movement.
Stop it. Just
You're making
spread
it
good information.
It's not supposed to be.
Yeah, like, YouTube doesn't cost anything. You don't have to have a nice camera. Like, all these people with their, like Mark Passio. Oh my God, like he needs all these servers and all this satellite up in space and shit. And it's like, no, like, these guys crack me up. But thank you. Thanks for coming on. I won't take any more of your time.
I appreciate you taking the time too. Like I said, hopefully it helps.
Yeah,
someone.
and this video will stay up as long as you want it to be up.
Okay.
And I guess have a nice night. Tell those guys I said hi.
I will. Thanks for doing what you're doing.
And then tomorrow's another one.
Yep.
We're doing Kyle tomorrow. And his story is probably the biggest story of all.
You had the most saturation. So
yeah.
Get ready.
All right. Thank you. Good night.
Good night.
See you. Yikes. Yikes. Yikes.